Do you want to rule? Do you see the problems in your country and know how to fix them?
Hey guys, today we're going to explore the beautifully produced Rules for Rulers by CGP Grey, which itself is an adaptation of the Dictator's Handbook by Professor Bruce Bueno de Mesquita. If you haven't watched Rules for Rulers, know that I will be summarizing a summary, so I recommend watching Grey's video in order to get the whole picture. In Grey's video, there are 3 basic rules laid out for a would-be ruler, lest their reign meet a bloody and abrupt end. While I don't disagree that these rules have been followed for a reason, and that history has proven repeatedly that it's the most successful strategy, I am here with some good news that may sound like bad news. The world, as we know it, is going to end. No, not catastrophically, but everything we take for granted will be turned upside down. Maybe not this year, but definitely this century. Grey presents what he calls a
Valley of Revolution,
which describes the turbulent fissure between the only 2 stable political systems. This dichotomy is not unlike the trolley problem, where a trolley is on course to run over 5 people. You can let that happen, or you can pull a lever to turn the trolley and kill 1 person. Except in this case, you don't have direct access to any levers, and every possible combination is represented somewhere in the world. So it's like Foot's trolley meets Schrodinger's cat. The main difference between the 2 pills is one is based on non-renewable resources.
If the wealth of a nation is mostly dug out of the ground, it's a terrible place to live because a gold mine can run with dying slaves.
And the other is based on citizen productiveness.
The more productivity, the better.
These 2 are the edges of this simple one-dimensional line segment. Why do I frame it like that? By definition, non-renewable resources don't last forever, and eventually the cost of the resource, price or otherwise, exceeds the cost of switching to an alternative. That's been agreed upon. What's less discussed is how human labor itself is a resource that likewise is going to be replaced. Watch Grey's other video, Humans Need Not Apply, for more on how humans are inventing our way out of jobs. Link in the description. A problem. We have so tightly tied our worth to our work that no matter what political ideology you subscribe to, your idols are either promising you more jobs or more power to the workers. We will deviate from this one-dimensional line segment, and we'll do it soon. In the system that's fast approaching, human labor will be no more a necessity than coal and oil. Laziness. You just don't want to work, huh? What's the alternative? First of all, duh, I don't want to be coerced into a lifetime of arbitrary tasks, though I do love building things, constructing arguments, teaching people, learning from people, and so on. Second of all, I don't know what the alternative is, but it's coming one way or another, and I can't force myself to ignore the lever. Now, you're probably concerned with what the future I describe would mean for humans, but not making any changes because the alternative seems imperfect is asinine. A note on imperfection. We as self-preserving creatures have the habit of focusing on and exaggerating the bad. We are, in full earnest, examining ideological imperfections so vigorously that we never get closer to perfection. We are philosophers cheating ourselves out of a good place.
Okay, this is ridiculous. I'm just gonna choose. Gray's the obvious choice, which is probably why I shouldn't choose it. Brown. Nope. Gray. Nope.
A claim the world is not ready for. Having people work for the sake of work is philosophically indefensible from any paradigm, except one that presupposes human nature. But so far, no one's volunteered to debate me. A unifying lever. Tell me if this sounds familiar. People should live however they want, so long as they don't affect other people's ability to live how they want. Smoke some plants, live off the grid, shoot some targets. Marry or live with as many consenting adults of as many genders as you want. Swing your fist round and round so long as it doesn't hit my nose. I won't stop you, and you won't stop me. When I was a kid, I used to think I was a libertarian. Then I met a sort of gatekeeper who invited me to explore that further. You haven't read enough Ayn Rand yet, and James Buchanan would be way over your head. Well, now I've looked into both, and it turns out... As a youngster, "Don't tread on me" seemed so obviously correct. But growing up, I had trouble justifying how badly libertarians missed the mark on social issues that were essentially treading on others. You would think that sharing a wider breadth of ideals would make the Libertarian Party the most attractive to the most people. So why aren't they championing social issues?
Why don't rulers see as clearly as you? Are they stupid?
Gray's video elegantly illustrates why any group with any amount of power, the Libertarian Party included, behaves the way it does. He explains that in order to maintain power, every ruler needs to satisfy their keys to power, lest they be replaced. In the Libertarians' case, individuals who are on the receiving end of social injustice are simply less relevant than, say, corporations.
Even if large in number, they are irrelevant to gaining power.
Hence, the loudest chant you hear is, "Corporations are people. Don't tax corporations. Don't regulate corporations. They have rights." Let's talk about that for a second. If you told me, "John, stop pulling down your pants and shitting in my vegetable drawer," could I retort, "How dare you regulate me? You have no ethical basis." Obviously no. You aren't treading on me by telling me not to shit in your vegetable drawer. I'm treading on you by doing so. But through this example, a very clear and present hypocrisy is highlighted, as viewed by the libertarian response to us demanding that corporations stop destroying land and producing toxic waste. Hypocrisies like this are present in every political ideology, even yours. Don't believe me? Make your own response video.
My name is Pen Sharpie. You owe me a debate.
Anyway, as I near my 30s, my personal mantra, "Don't tread on me," has changed to "Don't tread on anyone," as I've grown to see myself in everybody around me. Is everybody gonna wake up tomorrow and feel the same way I do? No. Will the human species eventually feel this way? Maybe. That cosmic experiment is underway as we speak. Now back to the flaw of ruling. Centralization. The only two stable political systems in Gray's video both have the same fundamental flaw. One or few people end up with a monopoly of power that they maintain by recursively paying off their keys, the people below them. The fact that democracies and dictatorships are similar is inescapable. Look no further than the United States, where we build roads and have schools funded by the taxation of working citizens, but also have low congressional approval ratings with high re-election rates. And we allow drug companies to straight up steal from us like in a dictatorship. Maybe a way to escape this simple one-dimensional line segment is to escape the centralization of power. When I say this, your knee-jerk reaction, regardless of political affiliation, is to pejoratively assign me some historically inaccurate label based on the propaganda you've been exposed to on your side. Some will say I'm just a privatizing fiend who distrusts central government, and others will say I'm a commie. I'm going to tackle the "you're a socialist and or communist" reaction first, because I think that's the position I would have taken when I was 23, and then I'll follow up with the opposite. Here goes. What's wrong with socialism? Isn't it good in theory? Well, John, socialism never works. Just look at Venezuela. Actually, if you watched Gray's video and took even one geography class, you would know that Venezuela is full of gold, oil, natural gas, diamonds, iron ore. Need I continue? The problem you have with their economy is their dictatorship. Now, because you hate socialism and point to Venezuela, I'm gonna take a big ol' leap and say that you're a capitalist. So, what's right with capitalism? Isn't it a good theory? I'm glad you asked. Unlike its alternatives, capitalism doesn't take a utopian view of economic organization. It does not replace man's choices with someone's idea of perfection. It permits choices that bring change and that allow for rejection of changes after experiencing outcomes. It recognizes that all changes are not improvements and are not welcomed by everyone. Differences are accommodated, often easily. Okay, so what you're saying is it's not centralized. Alright, other side of the aisle. If you think capitalism is bad, let's hear from you too. Well, John, capitalism never works. Just look at the biggest players in the market right now. The pharmaceutical companies, Amazon, the real moochers of America. Drug companies are funded publicly, yet they profit privately. They're funded through public university research, grants, subsidies, and other incentives, through your tax dollars. Then you pay them again at the pharmacy. Not to mention, the federal government was barred from negotiating cheaper prices for medicines by so-called free market advocates. And Amazon. They pay their employees so little that the government has to step in and provide welfare. And they don't pay taxes because they're so big that they lobby and bribe their way out of them. Not to mention a huge proportion of the value added by labor is taken by the company while crumbs are given back as wages. Okay, so you're saying they're too centralized. Are you seeing a pattern? Centralization is becoming a thing of the past in the same tech world that's so close to inventing our jobs away. But of course, the powers that be have been mobilized against that, recently with the repeal of net neutrality. But it's not just internet bandwidth that's under attack, it's also data, which as an embedded systems engineer, I can't even pretend to understand. So check out the video by Siraj called Open Mind that I linked below if that's of interest. And this is just recent tech stuff. There are a plethora of examples of efforts against decentralization throughout history. See, we tend to agree that the major powers of the world rely on lying, cheating, sneaking around to maintain their position. But this is going to be increasingly difficult for them, maybe impossible, as the information age matures. Accountability will increase as more people participate, and more people will participate with the boot taken off their neck. Here's what we've observed. Companies put profit over people, and the government acts without morals. If a company can cut costs and maintain a profit, they do so to beat their competition. The government acts in a very similar way. Gray's Rules for Rulers shows, in better clarity than I'm presently capable, how an individual in a position of power gets there and stays there. So it's my job to show that by following the rules for rulers, they either possess below average compassion or they suppress their truth in unrighteousness in order to not lose their power to someone more ruthless. I would need to make a whole separate video to support that, but suffice it to say that I presuppose cooperation and trust to be things that are natural to humans, and other creatures too. Even some lizards cooperate. Since I have not yet created such a video, I recommend checking out The Evolution of Trust, especially for those of you who like a little hands-on learning. So yes, it is my presupposition that humans are trusting and want to work together. Call me an optimist. I do get that we are predisposed to a vague sense of hierarchy, but working towards less centralization and balancing the power structures won't get rid of useful local pecking orders. For better or worse, my dog will always think he's the leader of my household. What we have now, though, cannot possibly ensure our collective survival. In fact, it will directly contribute to our downfall if we continue to ignore the lever. Call me a pessimist. Either way, we have a choice: to start actively trusting each other and work towards a less centralized power structure, or continuing on our current trajectory. But let's at least make sure to understand the top-level view before we start criticizing each other on low-level details. Communities of people working together without large centralized or dynastic powers have existed in the past. A lot. But they tend to get pushed aside by more organized, centralized militaries. By pushed aside, I mean literal genocide. Or at least cultural. Many anarcho-syndicalist communes with their utter lack of charisma have been repressed by a king with a moistened scimitar. We need to look at all the systems in the past that have collapsed and explore why they've collapsed. We don't just need knowledge to be accessible, it already is. What we need is the thirst for knowledge to be ubiquitous. If you are still struggling to picture a world where the powers are less centralized, then you aren't paying enough attention to how people are already sharing things with the aid of technology. Rideshare with cars, bikes, and scooters, peer-to-peer lending, crowdfunding, home sharing, co-working, blockchain, the open source movement, knowledge sharing, this video itself. And while you might complain that there are flaws in all of those systems, I assert that it doesn't have to be perfect. A replacement system only has to be better than what we have now. Indeed, the trolley problem itself has already been weaponized against self-driving cars, but that won't stop them from eventually becoming a source of transportation. Trust me, self-driving cars are very easy to make. So the question I want you to take away is not, can we fix this? But how will I contribute? Because no matter what you tell yourself, inaction is a decision for this runaway trolley. And that concludes the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that. If you do keep watching, all you're going to see is the low-level bickering I was talking about. So I suggest you scroll to my description and follow some of the links, like the CGP Grey videos, Rules for Rulers, and Humans Need Not Apply. Those are super relevant to this conversation. Anyway, bye-bye. Funny you should mention Amazon, since they're a marketplace. Tons of sellers reach customers through them, and tons of stores are being put out of business because of them. Well then, they should keep up with the times and sell online. What about jobs? Are kids going to put themselves through school by becoming online cashiers? Amazon is a testament to the inefficacy of supply-side Reaganomics. Amazon provides plenty of jobs, and recently they were forced to give their workers raises, so they had to cut back on insurance. See what you caused by meddling? Wouldn't be a problem with universal health care. Or, okay, let's raise wages more naturally and try a federal jobs guarantee to give workers an alternative. How is that natural? You really think the government can be trusted? It's run by a bunch of self-centered jerks who just want to take people's hard-earned money. Replace the word government with corporate conglomerate, and you're making my point for me. You don't know what you're talking about.